Yeah, welcome in. Welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast Live. Yes. As you can see, it's just me. My guys are not with me tonight, so I'm gonna do this on my own. It's been a while since I've done a live show by myself, but I'm gonna go ahead and do that. But I'm gonna give a little bit of time before we go ahead and get started. I see there's nobody in the chat, so I'm gonna chill for a few minutes and see what we got going on. Just saw one pop up. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Appreciate you. But yeah, just hang out a few minutes and see what we got. See if we get some more people come in before we get it started. Just gonna do a couple of topics tonight, as you can see. Definitely gonna talk about Michigan and what they got going on. Gonna talk about Julius Peppers and Michael Jordan. What does Julius Peppers have to do with Michael Jordan? Stick around and you'll see. Also, before we even get started on the main topics, we're gonna do some quick hits, and I'm gonna touch on some items in the world of sports, mainly some Olympic stuff. So I'm gonna get on that. But yeah, like I said, let me give it a few minutes and see what we got. See if we can get anything going. Get a little bit of traffic before we get started. All right. It's kind of different when you're here by yourself. When you get used to doing the show with a panel or a bunch of people, you kind of get away from the flow of doing the show live, just you. But we're gonna get back to it, man. We're gonna get back to it. This is nothing I can't handle. Did a little prep earlier, so definitely got some interesting thoughts to share, and look forward to doing that. Few more minutes. So those of you who are here, why don't you it's just a couple of you. Why don't you pop in the chat? Tell me where you're coming in from, and let's see what we got. And in the meantime, let's go ahead and put this on as well. All right. See a couple more people coming in, but all right, it's a little slow right now, but I guess I'm gonna go ahead and get it started. So like I said, we're gonna talk a little bit of Michigan, as you can see on the rundown, and then we're gonna talk about Julius Peppers and Michael Jordan, and you will find out shortly what Julius Peppers has to do with Michael Jordan and why we're gonna talk about the two of them. But before we get started, you know what time it is. If you're here on YouTube and you haven't already, please make sure you go ahead, click that like, that subscribe, that notification bell. Make sure you're kept up to date whenever we drop new content on the channel. If you want the audio only version of the podcast, open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in The Format Podcast, and we should come right up. If you're enjoying the content, make sure you give us that like, that 5-star review, and drop a comment. All that stuff helps us rise in the algorithm, helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. And finally, make sure you write it down, put it in your phone, set an alarm, do whatever you got to do to remember. Saturday nights at 7 p.m. we are live here on the Format Podcast, and we'll give you the opportunity to call in, talk to us, get at me. I love it. I can't wait. All right, so I guess we're gonna go ahead and get started. So what I wanted to do is hit on a quick few topics before we actually get started with the main ones. We call these quick hits. So let's do that. So the first thing I wanted to do is, of course, I've been watching a ton of the Olympics over the last week and a half now, and they've been pretty entertaining on a lot of fronts, whether it's basketball, whether track and field, swimming, all that. So obviously the swimming and gymnastics, they were kind of like the main events early on, and now we're really into the meat of the Olympics, and a lot of basketball and a lot of track and field. And a lot of times track and field, especially the sprint events, are what people are generally waiting for. So the men's 100-meter, that's the first thing I want to touch on. So Noah Lyles wins the gold in the men's 100-meter. He's now the fastest man in the world, which, okay, technically he's the fastest man in the world because he won the Olympic 100-meter, right? But obviously we know Usain Bolt's still the fastest man in the world, because he got that 9.58 world record, which I think it's going to take some time before anybody touches that. I think Kushane Thompson from Jamaica, he had the fastest time in the world this year, like 9.76, 9.77. So I guess Usain Bolt is within reach. Now we've had guys run in the 9.6s before, not just Usain Bolt, but I think it's going to take some time before somebody really reaches that pinnacle and breaks that record, which was crazy because if you saw that 9.58, I think it was back in 2008 in Berlin at the World Championships when Usain Bolt broke it, he still wasn't actually like pressed. And I've always said that if somebody really pressed him in a race, he probably would have broken the 9.5 mark, which would have been absolutely insane because a lot of his greatest races and wins, you saw like he was running away from the field and actually slowed down towards the end. But anyway, Noah Lyles in what was probably the most thrilling final in men's 100-meter Olympic history. He won by 5 thousandths of 1 second by just leaning into the tape before Jamaica's Kashane Thompson. So shout out Noah Lyles. You are technically now the fastest man in the world. You are the Olympic 100-meter champion, and that comes with a lot of praise and a lot of gravitas. So shout out to you for that. Um, Next up in the track and field, we saw um, Julian Alfred from the island of St. Lucia. She won, I think she ran for Texas in college, but she won the women's 100-meter, and she's the fastest woman in the world. Again, she doesn't have the fastest time, but she's the Olympic champion, so she's kind of regarded as the fastest woman. And she beat out America's Sha'Carri Richardson, who took home silver. And, good for Sha'Carri. That was kind of a big comeback for her after missing the Tokyo Olympics with, we saw she had the issues where basically she peed hot marijuana after, some personal tragedy in her life, and she was smoking and she ended up being hot and getting kicked off the team and not being able to compete. And everyone was, up in arms about it. But realistically, I wasn't up in arms about it because I'm like, I know that you went through tough times, but the rules are the rules. You violated the rules. Now you got to deal with the repercussion. But Sha'Carri Richardson worked very hard. She continued to be herself and put the work in and be one of the best female sprinters in the world. Work her way back, won the Olympic trials and represented our country very nicely in the Olympics and ended up coming in silver. And there's really no shame in that. Second fastest in the world, second best in a given event on this globe of what 8 billion people. That's pretty impressive, right? So shout out Sha'Carri Richardson, ends up taking home the silver medal. So impressive there. Obviously in the swimming, we saw Katie Ledecky just continue to dominate. She's an absolute machine. I don't know if anybody watched that 1500-meter. And she swam that 1500 so fast that she was literally out of the pool celebrating and waving while the other competitors were still coming in. Like, that's how good she is. That's how dominant she is in that event, as well as the 800. So outstanding. She is our most decorated female Olympian ever now. So shouts to her, Katie Ledecky. So a lot of really good stuff going on in the Olympics. Very entertaining. Was Gabby Thomas, Harvard alum, and she won the women's 200-meter gold medal. So she broke up the opportunity for Julian Alfred to win the double. So Julian Alfred won the 100, but didn't get an opportunity to win the 200. She came in at silver, while Gabby Thomas of the United States won the gold medal. So shouts there. All right, Simone Biles. Simone Biles is arguably the greatest female gymnast of all time. She took away more medals. She's doing her thing. I mean, you just watch her and it's absolutely incredible. So love to Simone Biles. She's 27 years old, and now what everyone is asking is she going to be able to will it up one more time for the 2028 Olympics, which I believe they're in Los Angeles, I believe. So she may be able to dig up one more go around, especially being that they're home in the United States. So let's look out for that. All right, so those are some quick hits on the Olympics. And the last thing I wanted to talk about, this is not an Olympic topic, but if you've been watching the show, we've done topics on boxing recently. And Canelo Alvarez, this is a dude that I've talked about in terms of him basically using the Floyd Mayweather Jr. model of trying to manipulate fights and manipulate opposition. And so we know that Terrence Bud Crawford has won championships at multiple weight classes, started out fighting at 135, came all the way up, won another championship the other night at 154. And he says he's willing to go all the way up to 168 for the opportunity to fight Canelo Alvarez, not necessarily just for the money, but why? Because he believes it is a legacy defining fight. And now we got a problem. We got a problem. So Saudi, I think he's a minister of sport or a royal court advisor in Saudi Arabia, Turkey Al Sheikh. He has been making a lot of big fights lately. You see hashtag Riyadh season when it comes to boxing. Riyadh being the capital of Saudi Arabia, but he's been making a lot of big fights. We saw him make the what was it, the Usyk and Tyson Fury fight, which was awesome, and now they're getting a rematch. But he's been making a lot of big fights, right? So he's trying to make this Canelo Alvarez Terrence Crawford fight. But guess what? We got a problem because Canelo Alvarez basically says he doesn't want the fight, right? So just here's an article that I got from MMA Junkie, and basically these sentiments have been echoed in other articles. You can look it up, right? So anyway, um, Turkey Al Sheikh says that his interest in Canelo Alvarez has come to an end, and Canelo Alvarez has responded, Crawford needs to fight Teofimo Lopez first, and then we'll see. Like I've said, at the end of the day, I'm not asking for that fight. They want to make that fight because it's a payday, obviously, but I don't want that fight. Teofimo deserves it more than me. My response to Turkey is this. Yesterday, they texted me and they said, we can talk about the fight in February with Crawford. They texted me yesterday. I said, look, I don't want to talk about any other fight. I'm focused 100% on this fight being the fight coming up in September with Edgar Berlanga. And then Canelo goes on to say, look, I don't like the way he talks. I'm not in this position because of anything. If he wants to work with me, it's my way, not their way. I don't need it. So Turkey Al Sheikh responds, and this was like, I never heard anyone go at Canelo like this. He says, I heard what Canelo said, that he respects me, but he doesn't like the way we do business. As for him respecting me, it doesn't matter to me if he does or not. As for the way I do business, I know why he doesn't like it, because I only target big fights at fair prices. So, of course, anyone who likes easy fights won't like that. And I know how he feels after losing to Bivol. That's light heavyweight champion Dmitry Bivol, who will be fighting Artur Beterbiev in, I think, November or December. But anyway, he says, and I know how he feels after losing to Bivol. So he's been looking for easier fights ever since. Also, I'm not the one who's afraid of fighting David Benavidez, or Terrence Crawford. Therefore, I knew he was wasting our time and making excuses with big amounts of money that can't be paid. So I'm continuing my way to make big fights that serve the boxing world, and he's on his way to making easy show-only fights. Now, if you watch this show, you've heard me talk about Canelo and how he left the zone because the zone was trying to get him to fight David Benavidez and he refused to do it. So he ducked that fight. You've heard me talk about how he tried to manipulate the Gennady Golovkin thing. He wasn't going to fight him at all. And then Triple G got in the ring and challenged him, kind of, put his Mexican machismo out there for the whole world to see, kind of forced him into accepting that fight. Then they fought. And then they fought the rematch. And then he waited 4 more years when Triple G was already about 5 years older than him to fight that fight. So, you see what Canelo does in terms of ducking guys or fighting guys when he wants to and trying to manipulate the opposition. And great fighters, warriors don't do that. They line them up and you fight them when you're supposed to fight them and let the chips fall where they may. And if you're the best, you'll beat them. And maybe sometimes it's not your day, but then you get a rematch and maybe you do, maybe you don't. But the fact is, nobody can say that you ran from anyone, or no one can say that you manipulated the situation. So I love the fact that Turkey Al Sheikh called out Canelo Alvarez regarding this behavior. I love it because we see too much now, and we see it in multiple sports, guys making quote unquote business decisions, especially in what we call warrior sports. Now, should guys get paid? Absolutely. Should guys understand their worth? Absolutely. I totally get that. However, I hate that I hate what's up, young disciple. Pleasure to see you, man. And good to see you. Good to see you. Why you don't do shows every time someone says LeBron the GOAT? You know what? That's a good question. You can call me and we'll talk about that after we do the segment. All right. Big Scoop, what's good? What's good? But yeah, so I love the fact that Turkey Al Sheikh called out Canelo Alvarez because I, it's about time that guys start getting called out for this behavior, man. Stop, especially if you're a fighter, like that's literally your job to go get in fights with people. So, stop running, stop hiding, stop trying to manipulate it. When they line them up, you fight them. That's all there is to it. And that's why I have so much more respect for that generation of, Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, George Foreman, that generation of Sugar Ray Leonard and Roberto Duran and Marvin Hagler and Tommy Hitman Hearns. Like, I get it. The money back then was nowhere near what it was now. But I mean, if you look at it, even back then, the money they were making was huge money compared to the average man. But regardless, guys understood that there was something to be said for the legacy of fighting everybody you're supposed to fight when you're supposed to fight them. So, that's my thought. And those are the quick hits. Those quick hits lasted a little longer than I expected, but yeah, I just wanted to touch on those notes on different items from the sports world. And all right, let's get it going. All right. I don't think this one is going to be too long, but let's go ahead and talk about the other topic that we had here on the show tonight: Julius Peppers and Michael Jordan. Why am I talking about Julius Peppers, NFL Hall of Famer, recently inducted NFL Hall of Famer, and Michael Jordan, who is a guy who is not even in the same sport? Now, this is interesting, right? So, young disciple, I don't know if you're still here. It says why you don't do shows every time someone says LeBron the GOAT. Um, I don't even know how to answer that. I mean, why would I, right? The reason why I don't do shows when people say LeBron is the GOAT is very simply because I think it's a ludicrous statement. I don't believe it, and there's a lot of evidence proving that he's not. It's that simple, right? Anyone who's been around watching basketball long enough to have seen Michael Jordan and understand what Michael Jordan was and understand what Michael Jordan faced knows that Michael Jordan is the GOAT. As well as if you look at the two players and you identify skill set, right? So it's not just okay, one has 6 rings and no finals losses. No, it's not just that. It's not just that the other has more points than anyone who's ever played the game of basketball, which is freaking incredible. No, it's not just that. It's not just that one has played 21 going on 22 years and is still playing at a higher level than anyone we've seen who has played this long. No, it's not just that. It's not just that the other has 10 scoring titles. No, it's not just that. It's when you put it all together, right? When I look at the GOAT argument or when I evaluate a player, it's not just stats, it's not just longevity, it's not just peak, it's not just accomplishments, it's not just championships, it's not just awards. You have to put everything together. You got to look at both sides of the ball, offense, defense. You got to look at skill set, what the player can do with and without the ball. Again, on offense and defense, you have to look at awards, right? MVPs, right? For instance, what Jordan has 5, LeBron has 4. You look at those things. You look at stuff like defensive player of the year, other accolades. You look at first team all NBAs or all NBA selections. You look at all-star selections. You look at all these things. So championships, skill set, awards, accolades, statistical production. And everyone likes to talk about, and there's no shade on LeBron for me to say this, but everyone loves to talk about how, LeBron has scored all these points and he scored more than Jordan and he assisted more than Jordan, but they don't look at the context of that, right? So he assists more than Jordan. Absolutely, he does. Does that mean he's actually a better passer than Jordan? No, that's not what that means. For instance, Michael Jordan played in the triangle for, when did he get Phil Jackson as his coach? 1988, right? So from 1988 until 1998, 10 years of his career, he played in the triangle. Anyone who knows anything about basketball knows that the triangle offense does not facilitate anybody getting big assist numbers. That's just a fact. There's nobody you can point to that played in the triangle offense, I think, that's ever averaged over 7 assists per game. It just doesn't happen, right? The way that offense works, it doesn't allow for people to rack up big assist numbers. But people are going to look and say, oh, LeBron's a much better passer than Jordan because Jordan averaged 5.5 assists for his career. LeBron averaged 7.5 assists for his career. Okay. LeBron's got the ball a lot more. LeBron has to play a certain way. He has to have certain type of players around. Okay, cool. But all that is great, right? People are going to look and say, well, LeBron scored more points than Jordan. Okay, cool. Michael Jordan played 15 years, I believe, right? He played 15 years. LeBron had to get into his 18th season before he passed Michael Jordan in scoring. So, like, is he really a better scorer? Yeah, he scored more points, but he also played in an era that facilitates scoring, right? There's no question about that, right? The defense is totally different, if not non-existent. We know, for example, if you go back and you look for Stu Jackson, former vice president of the NBA, or vice president of player ops for the NBA, he makes the comments back in like 2004 about the rules changes having the desired effect and basically opening up offense for offensive players and taking away some of the defenders' abilities to do certain things, right? This was done by design in the NBA. So this is not me being a hater. Like, this stuff is fact and easily verifiable, right? So again, I continue to make the same analogy. If in the year 2000 I run 2 miles and I run it in 16 minutes, good solid time. if in the year 2010 you run 2 miles, but you run it downhill while I ran it flat, of course you're going to have a faster time. Like if you run, if you are working under conditions that make it easier for you to do certain things, are you really better? We can't really say that, right? I mean, it seems like common sense, but maybe not. So anyway, back to Julius Peppers. Why did I bring up Julius Peppers? Because Julius Peppers over the weekend was one of two all-time elite pass rushers in the National Football League that was inducted into the National Football League Hall of Fame. And Julius Peppers, he played most of his career for the Carolina Panthers. He played a little bit of time in Chicago and Green Bay, and then he went back to Carolina at the end, right? And so again, he's one of the all-time great. What's up? It's not that serious. Good to see you, bro. Yeah, unfortunately, that's the case, right? And I think part of it is not necessarily all to blame on them. A lot of them are younger, so they didn't see earlier iterations of the NBA, so they don't understand what it was and what players back then had to go through, right? For instance, you're going to have a lot of people who are going to tell you that James Harden is better than Mitch Richmond, and that's absolutely absurd. And then you're going to have a lot who, when you say that, they're going to say, "Who's Mitch Richmond?" Right? So they're making commentary and they don't even have the information to be able to effectively assess what you're saying. But anyway, Julius Peppers, defensive end, played a good percentage of his career in Carolina. He finished his career with 159 and a half sacks. That's crazy. 52 forced fumbles. And he had a high in 2008 of 14 and a half sacks. So one of the better pass rushers of all time, right? And so Julius Peppers gets inducted into the Hall of Fame over the weekend. And it was very interesting because he had interesting comment to make. Now, remember, Julius Peppers is an all-time great football player, correct? All-time great football player. Now, that said, let's hear the commentary that he made that actually made me come up with this topic. Check it out.
So many people have helped me get to this stage in my family and in my football life. And while I can't mention all of you, just please know that I'm grateful. First, I want to thank Coach Mack Brown and Coach Donnie Thompson for coming to Bailey, North Carolina and making me realize that Chapel Hill is where I needed to be. And my thanks go to my head coach, Carl Torbush, who we lost last year, and my basketball coach, Billy Guthridge. They were great coaches and great men. And this ain't in my speech, but I'm gonna say it anyway. While I'm talking about Chapel Hill and North Carolina, and I know this is the Pro Football Hall of Fame, I ain't gonna sit up here and act like my idol and one of the reasons that I went to Chapel Hill is not in the building. The GOAT, His Airness, Michael Jordan. MJ, I wanna thank you for the inspiration and the memories. Love you, big bro.
Okay, so did y'all hear what Julius Peppers had to say there? My idol, inspiration, one of the reasons I went to North Carolina. Julius Peppers, he could have went probably anywhere in the country, right? He could have went pretty much anywhere he wanted to go. He chose North Carolina. Why? Michael Jordan. Now, Julius Peppers, let's see. Julius Peppers was a professional athlete from 2002 all the way to 2018, right? That's following his time in college at Carolina. So my question to you is this. Do you think that Julius Peppers has never met LeBron James? Do you think Julius Peppers has never seen LeBron James play? You think he's never been around him? You think he's never been around other athletes that know LeBron? And remember, Julius Peppers was a pretty good basketball player as well because he played basketball also at North Carolina. You can't be a bum playing basketball at North Carolina, right? If you play for the Tar Heels, if you hoop for the Tar Heels, you can hoop. And so I bring that up to say, do you think Julius Peppers doesn't know anything about basketball? He does. But yet, he says it in front of everybody. He says, yeah, this is the Football Hall of Fame, but guess what? Michael Jordan, the GOAT. Why do you think he says that? You think he said that just to say that? You think he said that just to say that? But people act like when I say that Michael Jordan is the GOAT, that I hate LeBron. No, I don't hate LeBron. I really don't care, honestly. But the fact is, again, if you are familiar with basketball, or if you've been around long enough to have watched earlier eras and iterations of the game, and you saw what it was that Jordan was able to do and what he went through and what he was able to still accomplish, you will see the difference between him and LeBron, and it's on a number of fronts. I mean, realistically, if you just look at the skill set, LeBron is not there, and that's no slight on LeBron, right? Most people would have him. Most people would have him as a top 5 player of all time. I don't. Whatever. That's a different discussion. But most people would. And the question is, out of all the players that have played in the NBA, I think it's about 4,500 or 4,700. Why is that not good enough to be top 5? Why? Because you need to keep telling us, LeBron, that you're the GOAT and you're this and you're that. But the point I'm trying to make, this is not about slighting LeBron. This is about, we have someone who played a completely different sport, right? At least on the professional level. Made the Hall of Fame in a completely different sport on the professional level. Took time out of his speech to say something that wasn't even in his speech and to shout out the guy that most people think is one of the greatest athletes of all time. Now, do I think he's the greatest team sport athlete of all time? No, I actually don't. I do believe wholeheartedly he's the greatest basketball player of all time, and that's an easy argument to make. I do actually believe that Wayne Gretzky is the greatest North American team sport athlete ever, and basically the reason for that is there's nobody or almost no one who's going to argue with you that Wayne Gretzky isn't the greatest hockey player of all time. Meanwhile, there are people for whatever reason who will argue with you that Michael Jordan isn't the greatest basketball player of all time, whether they think it's Big O, whether they think it's Wilt, whether they think it's Kareem, whether they think it's LeBron, right? There are people who will argue that. Most people in their right mind who know anything about hockey are not going to argue who's the greatest hockey player of all time. It's the great one, Wayne Gretzky. So I believe that he is the greatest player in the greatest athlete in the history of North American team sports. And then after that, maybe you argue for Tom Brady, maybe 7 championships. He's got more championships on his hands than any single franchise. He's got 7 of those things, and of course, he's got basically every quarterback record there is. And Patrick Mahomes may come get all those, but for right now, Tom Brady is hands down the best. But that doesn't take away anything away, excuse me, from Michael Jordan. But the point I'm trying to make here is you had a guy in a completely different sport who took the time out of his speech to make sure that he shouted out Michael Jordan and let everyone know who the GOAT is. Now, that said, let's get to some people that are in Michael Jordan's own sport, right? So Dwayne Wade is yeah, man. Yeah, yeah, the thing about Gretzky, and again, that's no shot on Michael Jordan. It's just that, think about it. If you know anybody who knows anything about hockey, ask them who's the greatest hockey player of all time. I think I would be willing to say 95 out of 100 people are going to tell you that Wayne Gretzky is the greatest hockey player of all time. I don't think, as much as we believe that Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time, I don't think at this point 95 out of 100 people are going to tell you that it's Michael Jordan. I really don't. So I just look at it that way. And then of course the statistical dominance, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, back to where I was going with this. So Dwayne Wade played with LeBron James for years. Those guys are super tight. They came into the league at the same time. They won 2 championships together, went to 4 finals together, right? But Dwayne Wade, supposed to be his banana boat brother and all that, this is the same dude that will tell you with no compunction that Michael Jordan's the greatest of all time. And he also talks about how at the 75th anniversary celebration, you had all those guys there, all the goats of goats: Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Oscar Robertson, all those guys, Shaq, and Hakeem Olajuwon, all these guys. But when Michael Jordan walked in the room, it got quiet. It was just different. Everybody knew it was different, and the guy had walked in. It's not like that with LeBron. And again, that's no shade on him because he has had an all-time great career. He really has. Now, how he got there and how you feel about how he got there, that's a totally different thing. I'm not getting into that. But the fact is, LeBron James has had an all-time great career. And so when you look at it, it's just a totally different thing. And that's not coming from me hating Bruce, right? That's what y'all call me, hating Bruce. But that's not coming from me. That's coming from his own people, right? Um, yeah, it's not that serious. I do remember that. You're right. Yep. In the early 90s, Wayne Gretzky, Bo Jackson, and Michael Jordan cartoon. That's crazy. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that in years. Great one, great one. Yeah, so it just shows you how different Michael Jordan is and what type of level that guy is on versus the others. And so it's not taking a shot, it's just demonstrating that you don't hear people from other sports taking time out of their Hall of Fame induction to mention LeBron. You just don't. Again, LeBron, all-time great career, but you just don't. There's just a difference. Who was it that said there's levels to this? I can't remember who it was that said that, but there are levels to this, and that is what it is. What up, Nino? Good to see you, man. Wade is from Chicago. I know Wade's from Chicago, but what does that mean? He also played with LeBron for 4 years, right? LeBron is his boy from jump from 2003 when they came in the league together. They banana boat homeboys. What does that mean? He's not boys with Michael Jordan. I'm sure he knows him because obviously he's an all-time great shooting guard, an all-time great NBA player, D Wade, Hall of Famer, all that. So he knows Michael Jordan, but they're not tight like that. What does that mean? Wade's from Chicago. You trying to make an excuse for why Wade is telling the truth that Michael Jordan is the GOAT? Really? Okay. Another one. I'm gonna give you someone who's not from Chicago, right? Ray Allen came in the league in 1996, correct? Came in the league same time as Kobe. Okay, cool. So that means he caught Michael Jordan his first 3 years in the league. He caught Michael Jordan's second three-peat. And Ray Allen, he was a beast when he was young, right? So he caught Michael Jordan's second three-peat, played against him. So that was like back of his prime Michael Jordan, not old Michael Jordan, played against him. Ray Allen also played against early Kobe, played against prime Kobe, played against late Kobe, played against prime LeBron, played with prime LeBron, and played against prime LeBron, right? All those things. When they asked Ray Allen who his dream starting five is, he had LeBron coming off the bench. LeBron James did not make his dream starting five. Come on, at what point are we going to start acknowledging that, like I said, when it comes to LeBron and Michael Jordan, there's levels to this? At what point are we going to start acknowledging it? This is not hard to do. It's really not hard to do. And as soon as we stop, you know, not we, but as soon as some people stop, as soon as you mention this thing, they go crazy and start running up and down and jumping up and down and screaming and yelling and want to attack people and freaking out and doing all this and their LeBron defense mechanism goes up and they have to start attacking you because you're just telling it how it is. As soon as that calms down and it stops, everything's gonna be all right. Everything's gonna be all right. I mean, it is what it is. So anyway, my whole point here was to bring up the fact that Julius Peppers, who is now one of the greats of the greats when it comes to the National Football League, and he is in the Hall of Fame where they say the bus talk to each other at night when all the lights go out. He is forever immortalized. He took time, and this is funny because it'll never be forgotten, right? We always you can go back and look at anybody's Hall of Fame induction speech on YouTube. It'll now never be forgotten that he took time out of his National Football League Hall of Fame induction speech to stop and acknowledge the GOAT, Michael Jeffrey Jordan, Michael Air Jordan. That's got to tell you something. Now I know for some of you out there, it's not going to tell you, but it should. All right, so yeah, that's what I got on that. I'm gonna go ahead and leave that topic right there. I'm gonna open up the phone lines 904-219-8264, 904-219-8264. If you want to call in and give me your thoughts on Julius Peppers taking time out of his National Football League Hall of Fame induction speech to bring up Michael Jordan and acknowledge that he's the greatest of all time in basketball. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you're a LeBron guy and you disagree with me, I would also love to hear your thoughts. So go ahead, call in 904-219-8264. Young Disciple, I'd love to hear from you, man. I'd love to hear from you. Nino, I know I generally hear from you. It's not that serious, man. Give me a call. So I hope, Young Disciple, that this answered your original question of why I don't do shows every time someone says LeBron is the GOAT. Yeah, because it is what it is. But yeah, 904-219-8264. Let's get it. Excuse me. And Young Disciple, I definitely get that that's his opinion. I totally respect that. But what I'm kind of trying to demonstrate here is that yes, that's his opinion, but you're looking at a situation where you have someone in a completely different sport who literally stopped and took the time out to tell you who the GOAT is, right? Just like we talked about Dwayne Wade and how when they were at the 75th anniversary situation, it's not that serious. The number is 904-219-8264. It's scrolling on the bottom. 904-219-8264. Yes, young disciple. So it's just like when D Wade was talking about how at the 75th anniversary celebration, all those guys who are goats in their own right, those guys were there, and when Michael Jordan walked in the room, everything stopped. Think about it. You're in a room with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Magic Johnson and Isaiah Thomas and John Stockton and this guy, that guy, this guy, that guy, and everything froze when Michael Jordan walked in the room. Right? It's kind of, to an extent, it's like how they said it used to be when Michael Jackson came in somewhere and people were fainting and everything froze up. Like that's how it is with Michael Jordan. Even the greatest LeBron supporters, Shannon Sharp, right? He loves LeBron, and that's cool. I respect that. Um, he says that the first time he met Michael Jordan had an aura, he had a glow, and it looked like he was levitating, and he could barely speak. Like this is the effect that Michael Jordan has on people, even the biggest LeBron supporters. So I mean, again, this stuff has to tell you something. Like this is not normal. This is not normal. How do we ever hear people say that stuff about LeBron? Does LeBron have that effect on people? And I'm not saying that that has anything to do with what someone does on the court, but what what Michael Jordan did on the court is what led to him being someone of that level. But let me go ahead and take this call. Format Podcast.
How's it going, man? It's been a while.
What's going on, brother? How you doing? Good to hear from you.
I'm doing all right. Um, I'll be brief if I possibly can, but
Yeah.
when it comes to that, like the whole LeBron thing, and it's like we can't just talk about basketball with him.
Mm-hmm.
And like just think about Julius Peppers Hall of Fame speech. He deviated from what he had written down
Mm-hmm.
to give Jordan a shout out.
Right.
And the difference that I noticed with like a lot of these people when they talk about LeBron, it seems like they're forced to or mandated to talk about him. And when they talk about Jordan, you can tell us from how they feel about him, how he moved as a player, and things like that. There's a distinct difference on how people say how they feel about either player. Because with LeBron, you can't just stick to basketball.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was interesting that Peppers, took the time out to do that. It's just like, why does it bother folks? That's my thing. I
Mm-hmm.
don't have to say anyone because I like who I like, for whatever reason. If for me, LeBron is an all-time great player. Why is that not good enough? And if that's for other
Yeah.
people, if that's their favorite player, that's fine. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to denigrate him to say who I like or who I prefer, who I think should go. And I think this generation don't understand that.
Yeah, it's definitely different. It's not that serious, and I appreciate your call. It's definitely different, man. But I don't know. I just look at it, and I guess it really did stand out to me when I saw that, because I'm like, yo, that's crazy to think that he had to stop and take time away from what he wrote as it. And I'm sure they only get a certain amount of time allotted for their Hall of Fame induction speeches, and so he had to stop, take a break from what he had written down to say, hey, we gotta make sure we acknowledge the GOAT that's in here, and so that's crazy, and not just acknowledge that he was there, but call him the GOAT. Thank him for the inspiration. Thank him for being part of the reason that he ended up going to North Carolina. Now
Right.
that said, I'm going to be fair here and say I'm sure maybe there's some Carolina bias involved there. Obviously, MJ is the greatest Tar Heel ever, and Julius Peppers is born and raised in North Carolina, and then obviously went to Chapel Hill and so on and so forth. So I'm sure there's some level of Carolina bias there, if we want to be honest. But regardless, like, you don't see that happening for anyone else, right? I've watched a lot of Hall of Fame induction ceremonies. I've never seen them stop to deviate from their speech to acknowledge someone who plays another sport as the greatest of all time. That's all I'm saying. And so I thought it was worth mentioning and doing a quick segment on.
Man, I appreciate this segment. I appreciate your shows when I get a chance to see them. I haven't been able to do them Wednesdays nights, so I've been watching them like, after before I haven't been able to catch them live. This is the first time I'm able to catch it live.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I appreciate the support, though. Thank you so much for being here, man.
Oh, no problem. And I'll say this before I get off, man.
Yeah.
My thing is this: there's older folks who who love Russell, who love Will, and stuff like that. And I used to have debates with my uncles and my older cousins. And for me, it was like I might have seen some of the tape on like Will and stuff like that, but I wasn't there in the time.
Right.
And see how they got down, how they played, and what they went through. So that's their opinion. They have emotions and all types of stuff invested in that. So I'm not questioning how they feel about who they feel they best player.
Right.
And that's the way I look at it. And there's this thing like we're deviating so far from that. We can just have basketball conversation. When you start getting into the details of people's resumes, then you want to talk about philanthropy and all this other different things that have nothing to do with basketball. It's like, let's just have a sports basketball conversation. Put their stats and what they accomplished against the other person and see how they stack up.
Right. So
that's all I have to say about that. This is all good. That's all I had to say about that, man. I'm just glad to catch you, live for a change. What were you about to say?
No, I was about to say, I was actually thinking about it, like, to your point about how you're saying you're talking to, some of your older relatives because, and, you get that when the older guys, they're going to say, well, oh, hey, boy, you didn't see Kareem when he was young. Kareem was that boy. Yeah, absolutely. Kareem was a problem, right? And, oh, you didn't see Wilt, boy. Wilt was unbelievable. And you didn't see Big O. Big O is the greatest player I ever seen. And that's cool. Where we might not agree with that, and we might say, okay, it's Jordan and it's Dream and it's D-Rob and it's Shaq and it's Kobe, right? Cool, but the difference with our generation, we don't have to denigrate the guys that came before, and it's weird. This LeBron generation, it's like their whole thing is they got to diss everybody. And where I'm going with this is, for instance, they say that Jordan always played against plumbers, right? Jordan beat up plumbers. That's why he won the way he did, and that's why he looked so good. So I saw a meme and it was funny. And this is their narrative, right? And it has Jordan hitting a fadeaway jump shot with Ray Allen defending, right? So that's half of the meme. The other half of the meme has Ray Allen hitting the shot that saved the series in 2014, right? In 2013. So it says, the meme says, by LeBron fans' logic, LeBron was saved by a plumber. You know what I mean? It can't be both. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
Yeah. So it's just so interesting that, Jordan played against plumbers. That same plumber saved LeBron by, making arguably the biggest shot in finals history. So,
I add one more thing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good.
Yeah. I was going to add one more thing to that. Because, like the same uncles and cousins, some of them agree, like, okay, I've seen enough to say it's the best I've ever seen. And but then I have it where they succeed in a different way. They be like, I still, Will's still my favorite, but I ain't never seen nobody like him. So it was like they can do it mutually. They can make it mutually exclusive. He may not be my GOAT, but he's one of the best players I've ever seen.
Right.
And for me, that's enough. And, I've never seen anybody to me play better than MJ. But I've seen Kobe. I've seen all these other great players. I respect their game. They're some of the best for a reason. You can appreciate that without denigrating another player.
Exactly. So, yep. But yeah, man, I appreciate you calling. It's good to hear from you, man. I'm glad you were able to catch the show, man.
Yeah, thanks a lot, brother.
All right, brother. Have a good night, man. Thanks.
All right, you too.
All right, everybody, I'm going to go ahead and drop it right here. This was a quick one, only brought in the 2 topics. And of course, I had those quick hits early in the show. But for everybody that checked in, I appreciate you. I appreciate you leaving comments in the chat. Young Disciple, man, I really would love to hear from you. And I will say that even though we don't agree on the topics a lot, I appreciate you being here and I appreciate you checking out the show. So thank you for that. So everybody who tuned in, man, thanks again. And make sure you're sharing the show. Make sure you're liking and subscribing if you haven't already. And make sure, you're letting people know about it if they want to hear a different voice in the sports media world. So next show, next show Saturday night, and hopefully I'll have the gang with me. If not, I will run it back again by myself. Also, if you watch the Man Down Sports Full Panel Fridays, I should be on that one this Friday, filling in for one of their regulars. So yeah, check me out on that. But yep, I guess that's it, and I'm out. Peace.